Press conferences have come to a close down there in Santa Clara as the San Francisco 49ers report to training camp today for day one of the 2024 season. It's an easy day to get really excited for the upcoming year. And so, what we're going to do is we're going to react to all the top pertinent information that came out of the press conference from John Lynch, Kyle Shanahan, Nick Bosa, and George Kittle. So let's start off with the big news of the day, all surrounding Brandon Ayuk and his stalemate with the San Francisco 49ers. So, as you would imagine, a good beginning portion of that conversation was about the updates with Brandon Ayuk and the contract negotiations. As it was reported earlier, Brandon Ayuk did show up to training camp today, and that is a good sign. It does appear that he is going to be holding in. We don't know yet if Brandon Ayuk is going to practice or not. When John Lynch was asked about this, he says, I expect all of our players to practice. So he's not giving any indication that Brandon Ayuk is or is not going to practice. Obviously, the expectation is exactly that. We expect all our players to be out there. So we are still in a wait and see period with Brandon Ayuk. Will he practice? That remains to be seen. But in regards to the ongoing conversations about the trades and the trade requests, et cetera, effectively John Lynch wasn't going to speak in any form of absolutes to the point where he kept saying there are no absolutes. So he wasn't going to, put any words out there that would indicate that Brandon Ayuk is or is not up for a trade. He is or is not going to be on the San Francisco 49ers. He did say that, quote, we fully intend on Brandon Ayuk being a Niner. So that's a good sign. Obviously, we want to see that happen in the sense of Brandon Ayuk getting a long term contract extension. So there's still some work to be done in that regard. But for the most part, this is probably as positive of a start for training camp regarding Brandon Ayuk, minus a contract extension. So that's the first thing. But we also had a lot of injury stuff that came out of this, and we got more information about Ricky Pearsall and what he's dealing with. But let's first start off with the designations. So starting with Talanoa Hufanga, you also had Drake Jackson and Dre Greenlaw. All of them will be starting on the physically unable to perform list, or the PUP, as it's mentioned. And Ricky Pearsall, as we found out last week when rookies reported, he will be on the NFI list, which means it's effectively the PUP. It just happened, he got hurt away from the team. So you get put on the NFI list as a non football injury. But we did get an update in regards to Ricky Pearsall's status. And so this is what has happened. It appears he has dinged his hamstring. We assume it's a pull. But according to Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch, Ricky Pearsall is expected to miss the first block of training camp. And Matt Barrows, I believe, asked a follow up question. What does a block consist of? And Kyle Shanahan reiterated that it's typically 3 to 4 days. So when they go on a practice block where they practice 3 to 4 days in a row, take a break, and then they look at it as a next block. So unfortunately for Ricky Pearsall, the first round draft pick out of Florida, he will not be available to practice for the first handful of days at training camp. So you will have to wait to see the 49ers' newest toy that they were able to acquire via the draft, probably next week of training camp. So that will be one thing that we will be on the lookout for. In regards to other information, Talanoa Hufanga, Dre Greenlaw, and Drake Jackson, there wasn't too much discussed about their impending timelines. So we shall see when those guys are going to return. So that is one thing that we will definitely be keeping an eye on, because I know a lot of people want to see what's going down with Talanoa Hufanga. In the other kind of good news, Jake Brendel, Charvarius Ward, Cam Latu, and George Kittle, they all were able to avoid the PUP list. As we know, Ward and Kittle had core muscle surgery this offseason. George Kittle talked about how he went down to 214 pounds. That's insane. He plays over 240. And I've heard Kittle talk about this before, how much effort it takes for him to maintain a certain weight level. It's crazy to think about that. George Kittle's probably walking around weight is about 210, 215, and he's playing in the NFL at 240 plus. So he is getting back to that place of gaining that muscle mass back, getting the weight back on as he gets ready for the season. But it is an interesting note to come out of it. Charvarius Ward again, good news that he wasn't designated for PUP, so that's good. We expect Charvarius Ward to practice, and Jake Brendel, who missed OTAs and mandatory minicamp with a knee tendonitis. So that's good news. Jake Brendel is expected to be inserted back into the starting center position. So we shall see in that regards. But outside of, Brandon Ayuk updates, outside of the injury updates, the kind of fun part of these particular press conferences were about facial hair. If you're familiar with this channel, we're big on the beard here. And as we know, Kyle Shanahan made quite the stir when he was shown at Christian McCaffrey's wedding with the glorious mustache. Well, he was asked about it. As you can see in the picture to the right, he doesn't have the mustache. He said that the day before training camp yesterday, he shaved it because he didn't want it to be a distraction for all of us. And you know what? I'm going to go ahead and say it's not a distraction. In fact, Kyle, it's the energy that we need. I want to see the stash back. Um, I even put in my post here politely requesting that the Shanna stash returns for the regular season. I think everyone loves the Shanna stash. I think they want to see it come back. But while we don't have a stash on Shanahan, we did get a stash on Nick Bosa. And so he's carrying the torch right now for the stash uh, fam, because Kyle, he's like, you know what? I don't want to be carrying the torch in that regard. But it was also funny. Even George Kittle had mentioned that, like all the tight ends had showed up with different types of facial hair. Apparently, Logan Thomas looks like Luigi. I guess guys have handlebar mustaches. So that's a thing in the tight end room. Obviously, this is on the more lighter side of having football back. But honestly, I can't wait till we get to see what's going down on the field. And that will kick up open to the media, from my understanding, and fans on this Thursday. So I believe there will be a practice tomorrow. Not sure if it's quite open to the media or not. I'll let you know once I find out more. But I do know for a fact all eyes are going to be on 49ers training camp starting Thursday. And you already know, turn on those post notifications because I'll be there, boots on the ground, and I will be able to give you all the insight that I see from watching practice. And on top of that, all the fun nuggets that we get in visuals out of 49ers camp. So make sure you're locked in, tapped in for all of training camp. Obviously, there's going to be a ton of beat reporters there, a ton of content creators, so you'll be able to get whatever insight you're looking for, but definitely want to be on the list for you guys of information about camp. So make sure you turn that bell on so you don't miss any posts and you get them right when we drop it. Drop your comments below of what you thought about the press conference, what your opening feelings are of the season, Brandon Ayuk, the injuries. I want to hear everything from you guys in the comments below. And as always, make sure to like and subscribe for more updates.